Snow was coming down in sheets, the kind of weather that makes grown men squint and coaches reach for their playbooks like comfort blankets. You could taste the drama in the air, cold, bright, and unforgiving. For 3 quarters, Joe Burrow was the calm in that storm. He moved like a man who reads the field the way other people read the morning paper, methodically, precisely, without panic. He found his guys. He hit boundary throws that needed to hug the chalk. He put the Bengals in front and seemed to take the elements personally, as if Buffalo's snow was only a backdrop to his control. Then the game flipped, not with a bang, but with 2 tiny, awful seconds that stacked into catastrophe. 2 back-to-back interceptions, 2 turnovers that turned hope into heartbreak, 2 plays that let Josh Allen, who, by the way, was doing jaw-dropping Josh Allen things all day, turn a wild shootout into a Bills win 39-34. Let's not pretend the loss was obvious from the jump. Burrow threaded a masterpiece in the second quarter, dropping a perfect toe-tapping corner throw to T. Higgins that had half the stadium on its feet and the other half muttering about how he'd keep his balance. Crittenden Benford and that Bills secondary would learn otherwise. This was not a game to be surrendered quietly. Burrow answered Buffalo's pressure with plays that required not only a strong arm, but a surgeon's accuracy. He hit tight windows, he moved the chains, and when the Bengals needed a push, he found his tight end Mike Gesicki for a key conversion and Chase Brown for a diving payoff run that felt like a clinic on improvisation. Josh Allen responded the way a superstar does. He refused to be outcharmed. He engineered long, grinding drives and then split a defense on a scramble that turned into a 40-yard touchdown, the kind of play that makes highlights and also makes defensive coordinators cry. He finished the day not only throwing 3 touchdowns, but running for 78 yards and another score, a dual threat who looks dangerous in every frame. By mid-fourth, it felt like the kind of shootout you tell friends about years later. Touchdowns traded hands like currency. The stadium, even through the snow, felt combustible. Burrow's numbers looked pristine, 25 for 36, 284 yards, 4 touchdowns. This wasn't a rusty veteran making do in bad weather. This was Joe Cool, long coat flapping, making plays that would usually be accompanied by applause and a sly grin. And then the pivot, a quick, routine pass that turned Sunday into a memory you'd rather skip. Christian Benford read a throw, grabbed it, and walked. No, sprinted. The other way for a pick six that gave Buffalo the lead. Suddenly, the scoreboard was a different kind of story. Momentum is a fickle currency, and turnovers are its cruelest collectors. The Bengals could feel the heat. Burrow did what great quarterbacks do. He kept swinging. He answered with a 25-yard strike to Higgins that reminded everyone exactly what he was capable of. Precision, timing, ice in his veins. There was time on the clock, and the Bengals had a pulse again. But the very next drive, the ball slipped through, slipped away, and Burrow tossed another interception. This one came at the worst possible time. Buffalo, sensing blood, went for it on 4th down instead of playing conservative, and Allen capitalized, driving them into the end zone to make it 39-28 with just 3 minutes remaining. The Bengals weren't done. Burrow found Higgins, the field narrowed, and for a beat you could feel the comeback brewing. But the Bills answered with a dagger. Allen turning a 3rd and 15 into a 3rd and 17 scramble, score that sealed the deal. The snow kept falling. The buzzer kept lurking. Here's the ugly math that won't leave Cincinnati fans alone. 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions is the kind of stat line that usually gets you a win. But in a game where every score was answered and where Allen could manufacture plays with both arm and legs, the 2 turnovers were the difference between a highlight reel and an exit interview. This wasn't a blowout. It was a razor-edge loss where mistakes got magnified in the cold. Look at the bigger picture for a second. The defeat drops Cincinnati to 4-9. Playoff hopes? They're effectively an afterthought now. Momentum in the NFL is a real thing. One loss breeds another, and when the weather's ugly and your margin for error is tiny, you pay dearly. For Buffalo, the win bumps them into solid positioning at 9-4, still chasing an AFC East that isn't going to hand anything away. And the human beats? Burrow walked off looking different than he did 5 minutes earlier. Not broken, but haunted by the knowledge that 2 throws he'd make 99 times out of 100 slipped through their slot. Allen walked off like a man who expected nothing less than to be the one who answered when fate knocked. Coaches are honest after games like this. They will watch the tape until the film looks like wallpaper, pulling at the threads to understand why a game decided by a handful of inches and a few split-second reads became the one in which they lost. If there's a mercy to take from this snow-blanketed chaos, it's this. Joe Burrow still showed why he's an elite-level quarterback. He showed resilience, rhythm, and the ability to command a game in terrible conditions. The difference was 2 defensive plays, sharp, opportunistic, and utterly decisive. And Josh Allen, he reminded everyone why he's the two-way nightmare defenses dread. Precise when you need him to be, wildly dangerous when you don't expect him to be. The bottom line is both simple and brutal. In a high-wire shootout, turnovers decide the tight ones. You can throw for 4 touchdowns and still lose if you hand the ball back twice and let a playmaker like Allen turn those chances into points. In this snowstorm, the Bengals had the lead, they had the game, and they let it slip through cold fingers. The Bills took it, and Buffalo, not the weather, wrote the final line. Snow, adrenaline, and then 2 throws that turned a Bengals win into a season-defining gut punch. For 3 quarters in Buffalo, Joe Burrow looked like the guy you expect to show up in a storm. Calm, accurate, ice in his veins. The elements weren't the story. The way he carved the Bills' defense up was. He hit tight window throws, he hit boundary throws, and he kept Cincinnati in front deep into the 4th quarter. Then, in the blink of an eye, the script flipped. Burrow's masterpiece earlier in the game was textbook stuff, a perfectly placed corner pocket dime to T. Higgins for a touchdown. The kind of catch that makes announcers say, toe tapper, hold on, put the Bengals up, and set the tone. Mike Gesicki and Chase Brown each turned routine sequences into highlight reel moments. Burrow placing the ball where only his guy could finish it, even while rushers crept in. That was the Burrow we've paid to see. Surgical in the pocket and deadly on timing. But Buffalo didn't just stand there. Josh Allen answered with his own brand of violence. A patient 12-play drive finished by a tight window strike to Khalil Shakir, and later a 40-yard scramble that looked like a cheat code in snowy conditions. Allen's mobility and the Bills' timing made them impossible to ignore. Still, Cincinnati carried the lead into the late window because Burrow and the offense were doing their jobs. And then it all unraveled, late and quick. With the Bengals clinging to the lead, a short pass intended to keep momentum turned into a highlight for the Bills' secondary. Christian Benford nabbed it and took it all the way back for a touchdown. That wasn't just a turnover. It was a sudden lead swap and the kind of explosion that changes locker room energy in a second. Burrow had time to respond. Instead, his next attempt slipped through for yet another interception. 2 picks in roughly the same sequence, and suddenly the cozy narrative of Burrow versus the Blizzard became a horror show of timing and ball security. The Bills pounced, converting the sudden swing into more points, going for it on 4th down and forcing Cincinnati to play from behind in a hostile, snow-laced environment. A late Burrow to Higgins touchdown added some theatricality, a reminder that Burrow can close drives, but Josh Allen's resilience finished the job. On a crucial 3rd and 15, Allen scrambled for 17 yards to seal it, and Buffalo walked off with a 39-34 win, while Cincinnati's season ledger slid to 4-9. Here's the blunt takeaway. Burrow's 4-touchdown day still had 2 game-sinking errors. Good quarterbacks give their teams a chance. Elite quarterbacks minimize the "I can't believe he just did that" moments. You can torch a defense all afternoon, but a pair of late turnovers, especially in adverse conditions against a quarterback who can hurt you with his legs, will cost you more often than not. From a schematic view, the Bills adjusted as the game went on. They mixed coverages to bait quick throws, disguised pressure until the last second, and relied on Josh Allen's playmaking when the offense needed a jolt. Cincinnati's protection held long enough for Burrow to work, but the timing windows that made the early throws possible got tighter when the Bills' DBs started sitting on routes and taking away the short options. That forced Burrow to squeeze throws, and one squeezed ball became a pick six. There's also a weather factor. Snow doesn't excuse mistakes, it amplifies them. Footing, ball security, and receiver timing all get frayed, which makes late-game precision even more valuable. Allen's scramble yards became a decisive weapon in that environment. Burrow's 2 INT swing became a death knell. What this loss does to Cincinnati isn't just another L in the column. It makes the final stretch steeper. A 4-9 record isn't mathematically buried, but it shifts expectations from still in the hunt to figure out the winter. The offense still looks explosive when it's clicking. The floor is that a few bad throws change seasons. For Burrow personally, it's a reminder that the margin for error in December is microscopic. For Buffalo, this game was textbook resiliency. They turned momentum with a defensive touchdown.